Pat McAfee says he's going to be back on College Gameday. Of course, it was McAfee who did not extend his contract and didn't know if he was going to beyond 2023, and did so because of, in part, 48% on a 30 or 3,100 reader poll, I believe, from The Athletic, said that they didn't like Pat McAfee on College Gameday, and he had a response to that on social media then. Well, he's back now, and here's McAfee discussing why.
We made an announcement that it is officially official. As Adam Pierce, that bald stooge, would say, I am returning to College Gameday, and although I don't want to make a big deal out of it, I know it is a big deal that it's happening. There was some drama, obviously, that started lingering. We had chatted about it, me, Burke, and Jimmy, obviously, whenever the licensing of the show conversation was taking place. Then some lawyer at ESPN tried to be a super genius. I closed Sicilian'd him. I ended up being a free agent, and it was a real moment of looking in the mirror and saying, am I the right person for this job? Obviously, the Athletic poll came out last year. I think it was like 50% of the people were like, get this guy the hell off of College Gameday. I'm a College Gameday fan. I enjoyed waking up on Saturday mornings and watching the show that propels us into college football Saturday and inevitably into NFL Sunday. So for those people to have a terrible morning because of my existence was certainly something that weighed very heavy on this here dumbass sports stooge heart.
There's McAfee in part of his conversation there. He's taking a shot at one of the ESPN lawyers. He's
Love that.
Discussing roughly 50% of readers at The Athletic. Again, readers, 3,100, I believe, is how many responded. 30% of that poll said they did like him, and then the rest, I guess, said didn't care or didn't know.
I think he said 49% said they did
not
like him.
like him. Yeah, so it was right at, it was like 48.9 is what the story said. And, you know, he responded then and said, I'm sorry if it offends or you don't like me if you're a distinguished, quote-unquote, College Gameday fan. But, I mean, Jimmy Pitaro and those heading up ESPN have backed him 100% this entire way. I don't know if ESPN clearly wants him on there. They're paying him to be on there, and did so last year. They wanted to have him on contract multiple years. He played this to his liking, and they're trying to play to a much younger audience, and they're also serving the quote unquote distinguished college football fan with Nick Saban joining the crew.
Yeah, and those distinguished college football fans are watching. The bottom line is here, he gets a response. People have an opinion on Pat McAfee, good or bad. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people and older football fans who watch and say, who is this wrestling clown that's standing up on the desk and screaming at everyone? I don't like it. I want my college football with a side of Kirk Herbstreit and not a side of Macho Man Randy Savage. And that's what you're going to get with Pat McAfee. But they're not turning away because of him. They're still watching, and they have an opinion. Like most things in America right now, it sells more to be divisive, to be divided. So if you've got 50% of the audience that loves you and 50% of the audience that hates you, that's a good thing for ESPN and their numbers and interest in Pat McAfee.
But is it big news?
And it's also a good thing to have that younger demographic
That's
that you
what they're
mentioned.
after. But isn't Big Noon's growing closer to them? And
I think Big Noon's growth is all about the games they have.
Well, but
they have the best game at the earliest part of the day every week.
But they're not going the McAfee route. You know, the goofy, you mentioned the clown aspect, the over the top WWE aspect. And, you know, while everyone has an opinion on Pat McAfee, if you're watching Game Day, you're tuned in for the opinion of those on today's slate of games more than you are having, you know, the first take debate or the, you know, whatever's happening in the crowd for pep rally.
Yeah, he's not a debate guy on that show. He's a hype man. You know, it's a pep rally. Like, he's there to open up and get the crowd behind them into it and bring that energy to it.
And that's what
I
he
don't
does
think
on
he's there
Fridays.
to fight anyone.
That's what he does on Fridays when he's on campus, doing the show live.
I am interested to see the dynamic with him and Nick Saban on that show because...
Well, didn't he have... McAfee had him on weekly.
He's going to have him on weekly moving forward, too. But Hutton, Nick Saban is the guy who's going to make headlines with whatever he says on that show.
De facto commissioner.
Yeah, every opinion he has on the biggest stories in college football, especially when he leans in strong one way or the other on something, that's going to be what's going to resonate with the audience. And that's what everyone's going to pick up and write about and talk about is what Nick Saban says and not what Pat McAfee does. But Pat McAfee does bring a certain energy to the show that I think is refreshing and new, and it's good. I also think that what Pat McAfee just said in that whole speech he gave on his show about coming back was all of that talk about I had to go back and self-reflect on, oh, they don't like me and I don't know if I'm a part of this and that. That was a negotiation ploy. I mean, he basically admits it. Some super genius lawyer with ESPN had all these things to say, so I had to go back into my cave and debate on whether or not I even wanted to be a part of it. And then suddenly the negotiation gets rolling again, and he gets what he wants, which is a spot on that show. I think that was all negotiation.
Well, I believe him, though, when he says he looked in a mirror and said, I've got a spot on College Game Day. Why would I want to be a part of this? Everything's a negotiation, yes, but the lawyer didn't put the poll out there and have McAfee respond to it. I mean, that played a factor.
No, he didn't, but the lawyer could have brought that poll up in negotiations.
Well, McAfee brought it up on his own.
Yeah. No, but I don't know that McAfee walked into negotiations when he's trying to get a contract and said, hey, have you guys seen the athletic data? Well, that 49% of the audience hates me. I'm saying they could have used that against him, and that's what he's talking about in hating that lawyer.
Yeah, but they were the ones pursuing McAfee. I don't know if you bring that up if you're pursuing him. You have to convince McAfee that the show's going in his direction.
I love that the dude calls out people who talk trash about him. And people can say it's business, you shouldn't bring that into the show and do all these things. But it's very difficult if you're ever in that spot to not take it personally when in a negotiation someone's talking bad about you. And that's what he's referencing with this lawyer, I'm sure. That the super genius lawyer he's referencing was bringing up negative aspects of Pat McAfee, and human nature is going to dictate that you're going to get pissed off about that. And it's funny to me that he brings it up because not many people have done that publicly before.
The lawyer works for the company.
Right.
They have their client. They're the bad guy in this.
Yes.
So he's speaking on behalf of ESPN, but I mean, in no way has ESPN ever not backed McAfee. And they back him here again. His quote back then in 2023 with that poll on social, I don't watch, many responded was, I don't watch Game Day anymore solely because of McAfee. I think McAfee adds great energy to Game Day. Another one says, I don't understand all the hate for him. And he replies to all these and says, I've heard you all very loud and clear since the beginning of my stint with Game Day. It's one of the biggest reasons why I have not re-signed a contract with this legendary show. I'm not right for some crowds, and the distinguished, quote unquote, college football folks are definitely one of those. So he's admitting that, but I think ESPN is saying they have to get more than just the distinguished crowd. And they're certainly, I guess, I'm sure he's going back on campus on Fridays with the travel. And, I mean, ESPN wanted him on this show to begin with as a step in the door to get the rights to his show anyway, because didn't he join this prior to having the rights?
Yeah, he was on Game Day before his show came
so
up.
this will be, year 3 now for him? Yeah. I mean, and also 3,100 participants is a very low number.
Very, very low number to try to draw any big conclusion from all of that. And, yeah, look, the lawyer, I'm sure, was, the bad cop and good cop, bad cop. He's not calling out Jimmy Pitaro or Burke Magnus.
Never has.
In this, and never will.
And they haven't called him out.
But, yeah, I mean, Jimmy Pitaro and Burke Magnus are talking to the attorney and saying, let's get him for this number and not this number. And in doing that, it's like going to arbitration. If you're an athlete, you're going to end up hating the team when they start bringing up all the stats and things you don't like that they're going to talk about. That's negotiating.
I don't know if you bring it up, though, because McAfee's he'll just be like, okay, I won't do it. Yeah. I'll go do Monday Night Raw. And
that's what I'm getting at. I think that's the card he played, and it worked. I think when he had that moment of self-reflection, that was him saying, I don't need this, and if you all don't like me, maybe I won't do it, knowing that he was going to be fine either way, and also I think knowing deep down he wanted to do it, and knew deep down ESPN wanted him to do it. So they were going to come back to the negotiating table and get a deal done, and that's eventually what happened.
Yeah, and now I'm thinking, I wonder who's playing the bad cop in the Stephen A. Smith negotiation.
And what will Stephen A. Smith say on his podcast?
Or
not on ESPN, but his podcast.
Or his show if he gets what he wants with more. And here's the other thing.
I want to meet the super genius lawyer now that he referenced. Maybe it's the same super genius that's going to be talking with Stephen A. Smith.
Maybe Norby Williamson hired him, for all we know. Real quick, pointing out both guys, they're both working about 7 days a week during football season. McAfee for sure, and that's on top of whatever he's doing with WWE. And WWE, they've got Netflix coming up, so he's going to be all over the place. Then there's Stephen A. Smith, who's wanting to do even more than what he's already doing, which is, I mean, he's all over the place to begin with. For the big events.
And that's probably, in a weird way, football season may be slower for Stephen A. Smith right now because he doesn't have as big of a football
He wants
involvement.
to add to it, though, right? He wants to be more of part of the Monday Night Football package.
And that's what I'm saying. Right now, football season is slower for him.
But the NBA starts during that time of the year.
I know, but he wants to get more of an NFL involvement, and that's how he wants to make more money.
And that's
because
the
he knows
prime
NFL
property.
is what makes the
No
money.
doubt. Yeah, and I think he'll be very good with that. Scott Van Pelt has been very good. I hate that they took him out of the studio. You know, they put him on took Colbert and all their spots there, but it is what it is with ESPN. The money's going to McAfee and Stephen A. Chad, big money will be paid to Ryan Day at Ohio State. Doesn't matter if he stays the coach or not, but hot seat is there. And I saw a list earlier this week, coaches on the hot seat, rating them 1 through 5, 5 being on fire. And there's, a handful of coaches, including, Pittman, Napier. But Ryan Day was like at a 3. And I'm thinking, a 3 out of, middle of the pack? When Ohio State has gone back-to-back years, losing to Michigan and losing their bowl game? What do you make of what he said at Big Ten Media Days?
A lot of people are making a lot out of not a lot at Big Ten Media Days, I think, from what he's saying. But there's a word in here about rebuilding, or we need to rebuild it, that I think people are running with that is a little bit extreme. I thought Trey Wallace at OutKick wrote a good piece about this. I think a lot of this is just coach speak, and I don't really have a big response to it. But we'll let you hear it for yourself, and you tell me if Ryan Day is underselling what Ohio State is and what they should be in 2024.
I think anytime you're at Ohio State, we know you're going to have expectations, but there's always going to be chatter. There's always going to be noise, and it's our job to block all those things out and just focus on what really matters. And I think especially this time of year, the easy thing to do is focus on, the goals, focus on the end of the season. But that's really is a waste of time if we don't build the foundation right now. Now, our guys, they know what the expectation is. You've heard some of them say, what their goals are. We're not going to shy away from that. We want to win the rivalry game, be right in this stadium right here, win this Big Ten championship, win a national championship. We know that. But at the same time, that can't be our focus because that's a distraction from where we are right now. And so where this season goes and what this team looks like is going to look a lot different than it did last year. And this is a new journey. We got to rebuild that to get to where we need to be.
And I have no issue with anything he said there, and I agree with pretty much everything. You can't just focus on, we're going to be beating Michigan in late November, and we're going to be playing for a national championship, and we're thinking about that, before we even go on the road to Eugene to face Oregon, which is by far their biggest test on their schedule. I think they're going to coast into that Michigan game, other than that game on the road at Oregon, which will certainly be a challenge. So I got no big issue with anything he said with that. A lot of coach speak. But a lot of it is truth about the journey you got to go on throughout the course of a season to reach your ultimate destination or your ultimate goal, which is, and make no mistake about it, not only beating Michigan, but winning a national championship. Ohio State is Bama this year. Anything short of beating their rival at the end of the year and winning it all is disappointment for this Ohio State team. I don't think I'm being crazy to say that. Some might say, well, if they beat Michigan and lose in the semifinal, then Ohio State fans will be okay with that. Or lose in the national championship game, Ohio State fans will be okay with that. I don't think so. And I think the rest of America is looking around and saying, this is their year. Michigan is restarting with a new coach and a new quarterback. This is kind of a rebuilding year, even though their roster is still very good. You don't bring in Caleb Downs at safety from Alabama, Quinshon Judkins at running back, Will Howard at quarterback, and most importantly, Chip Kelly is your offensive coordinator. If the goal with this roster and that schedule, which is pretty weak outside of at Oregon and Michigan, unless the goal is to win the national championship. And to me, Hutton, that is the expectation for this team. And anything short of beating Michigan and winning it all is going to be a disappointment for Ohio State this season. And we'll ask Bobby Carpenter about it a little bit later in the show.
Only one loss, though, ends his job, gets him fired, and it's the Michigan. It's the Michigan game on, November 29th or 30th?
Yeah.
And around a month later would be the quarterfinal, in the first game, hypothetically, if Ohio State beats Michigan on this schedule, they should obtain the first round bye. And it would be New Year's Eve or New Year's Day for the second round of the college football playoff, and you're a couple wins away there from the national championship.
Let's say, though, their lone loss was Michigan at the end of the year in the regular season. Then I think it would make it imperative for him to win the national title to make up for that loss to Michigan.
Yeah.
So they'd have to go on a run in the playoff and win it all, and then it would be okay. Then everyone would be, all right, let's give them an extension and do all that. We don't care about the Michigan loss because we won the national title. But the expectation, to me, is very simple. Win all of them, including Michigan, and win a national championship. That's how good this Ohio State roster is, and especially bringing in Chip Kelly. I think that raises the bar even higher.
Do they have a chance? I mean, they should be dominant in the Big Ten. Oregon feels the same way, by the way. Mm-hmm. They think they're coming in and they've got double the swagger that Texas fans have right now coming into the SEC. They should, as a team. They're good. Ohio State's better, though, talent-wise. And they bring in Kelly. They've got to figure out, he mentioned this at the podium as well, offensively, what their fastball is. But they have this the theme is unfinished business, which is also very cliche, but unfinished business is the theme at Ohio State this offseason, the theme of the season. And, you've got a dozen players or so who could have gone pro that chose not to. And now they're coming back, and they're many of them in a system with Chip Kelly where he's taken the talent around him and done different things. The two tight end sets. He's had the mobile quarterback at Oregon. What we saw at UCLA is way different. And you've got Ryan Day who said, we got to fight our fastball. The best teams and the best offenses are like, this is what we're running, and you got to stop us. That, to me, is what we've got to really identify in this preseason and really just hammer home. And the hammering is what Coach Lou Holtz wanted done against Notre Dame a year ago. Day went into this with, you don't want the distractions, and I agree. He's not saying anything that's awful or shying away from things, because he does mention you win a title, you want to win the conference, you want to win the rivalry game. But if you want to have the mentality that Holtz brought up, don't you have to embrace and put the college football playoff logo and circle the national championship game?
Well, so
in Atlanta?
Yes. And I don't care if he's saying this at a press conference before the season, but I do think that the mentality of Ryan Day needs to be what we saw in that NBC postgame interview when he called out Lou Holtz that we referenced, that he needs to approach every game like Lou Holtz just called his entire roster soft. That needs to be the approach mentally in every game this season, especially when they play Michigan. Because whatever got into him that night in that postgame interview, they need more of that at Ohio State. And we talked about Oregon coming in with swagger. Think about Washington, who just played for a national championship coming in, but they lose Kalen DeBoer, they lose Michael Penix Jr., they lose Odunze. A lot of great talent is gone, but Hutton, that schedule for Ohio State, it's a pretty easy schedule by Big Ten
with
standards.
An NFL roster.
Akron, Western Michigan, Marshall. They're 3-0 at home to start the season. Michigan State sucks. They go to Michigan State. They'll win that easily. Iowa cannot throw a forward pass or complete one. They get Iowa at home. They got at Oregon. That's tough. Nebraska at home. Nebraska's going to be improved. You're at home. That's a win. At Penn State. Okay. Circle that one. Maybe. That's a tough one. Playing on the road at Penn State is difficult. But then Purdue at home at Northwestern. I think that game's going to be played at Wrigley Field instead of the junior high stadium that Northwestern's playing temporarily in on campus. Indiana at home, and then Michigan at home. This is easy breezy. There are two potential tough games on your schedule, and that's it.
And
they are blowing out everyone else on this schedule, or they should.
And you need to win the championship because Michigan won it. They're coming off the Michigan championship.
I would pay Lou Holtz to come and give a pregame pep talk and just trash talk the entire locker room before every game to get them fired up the way Ryan Day was fired up about Lou Holtz calling him out, calling his team soft. That's what they need this year up in Columbus.
And you got Sharon Moore, and he said everything we are working towards is beating them in response to Ohio State. And Moore's been the interim coach against Ohio State last year. Beat him. But I mean, he's focused solely on the rivalry, and so is Day.
He's won enough.
Again, if Day loses, peace. And he gets paid 40 plus million to lose that game.
It's crazy to think about because the Bama's the one comparison I can make. Even Georgia coming back for that second one was pretty no-brainer.
Yeah,
they got to win it with all the players they had coming back. But Alabama felt like a year-in, year-out thing where for Nick Saban and that roster, if they didn't win it all, it felt like they had failed their head coach and failed their fan base
2 years ago
by not winning.
They lost 2 games, and Saban said it was a rebuilding season.
Yep.
So,
well, Ryan Day's not going to get that break at the end of the year and say we're still rebuilding.
No. Chad, it has been some rebuilding, retooling across the NFL. Starting to see things come together, albeit we haven't seen pads on for the majority of practices across the league. A couple of teams have started early. NFL training camp is here, and big storylines are across the league. You have a new kickoff rule that we're going to see in the preseason. That'll happen during the games. You have the tackling, the hip tackle that you cannot do anymore with the drag down, the hip drop. Can't do that. Not going to see full contact 11 on 11 in these practices, but you'll see some big storylines play out. I've got the top 5 for me that I'm paying attention to, and that we all will be the headline grabbers as NFL camps are fully underway for all 32 teams. And it starts with a headline and a name that we talked about a lot last year that hasn't garnered much attention this offseason. And I'm pairing him with another quarterback who we haven't mentioned very much either. It's Aaron Rodgers and Joe Burrow as they make their return. Massive for both teams. You have Joe Burrow, who enters. Joe Cool is back. Slim Shiesty with the new look, looking like Slim Shady. T. Higgins is playing under his franchise tag. Wanted to be traded, wasn't traded. Guess who's at camp? T. Higgins. Jamar Chase is eventually going to get that big contract extension. He's in the fold, and they've been fantastic together, Burrow and Chase. Jermaine Burton is now in the wide receiving corps in Cincinnati. Mike Gesicki is there as well. Zach Moss is the running back. They have the talent, and now they have the quarterback back. He played in 5 games last year before he had the wrist injury where he sprained a wrist or tore a ligament, I believe, in his wrist after he had all the calf issues in the preseason. He's back, and they were 4-1 with him a year ago. They, along with a young head coach who has done some nice things but also needs to put it together, they have the ability to compete just like the New York Jets in the AFC, if not better, with Joe Burrow. And then there's Aaron Rodgers. I'm stunned at how little we've talked about this, where he's back after 4 plays, 4 snaps in the opening game on Monday Night Football. And he's done the off-season trips like he did a year and a half ago. He went to Egypt this go-around. And on top of that, he was in the running for to be a running mate and a vice presidential candidate for the United States. He returns as the Jets quarterback. He'll turn 41 in December. Better offensive line. They have added depth at wide receiver. And the Jets are contending for a Super Bowl. It was Super Bowl-bound Jets this time last year. Is it this year? It should be. They should be much better. This is number one, is just how both of these quarterbacks and the energy around these two teams in the AFC factor in to keeping the Chiefs from winning a third straight. Rookie quarterback impact.
You know who all I can see, by the way, just looking. Let's go back to that photo before, please. It is Flea.
See, I see Cody Rhodes from WWE.
Yeah, that's a good one too. But when I just glance up, I think Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That's good too.
When I look at Joe Burrow.
Chad, rookie quarterback impact from the vets to the rooks. A record 6 quarterbacks selected in the top 12 picks. We're going to see probably 4 get the starting nod, and if not 4 or 5, and then all of them will eventually be starting throughout the season. Caleb Williams. The Bears had the number 1 pick, but keep in mind, they traded for that. They were better than the worst team in the NFL. I think the perception is Chicago has been Chicago when they actually, pulled together and won 7 games a year ago, surprisingly, with all the change. All their coaches are gone. They retooled that. They still have Eberflus as the defensive head coach. And now they have what should be a nice offense with the quarterback that was wearing the crown of he's the number 1 pick a year ago. He's the Heisman Trophy winner going into college football season. He's been no doubt the guy. Can he be the guy in Chicago as they pair him with Rome Odunze out of the draft? But they also have Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet at tight end. They add they add Swift at running back, pay him big money. They need to cash in, and could they be a surprise team like we saw in Houston? Again, offensively, they should be better, much better with Caleb Williams, if Williams is truly the guy. Jaden Daniels. What happens in Washington with Jaden Daniels? How fast can he pick up on not just the offense, but just the speed of the game and the talent that they're trying to pull around him with a revived franchise? Different energy with the Commanders currently. Drake May, good luck in New England. It'll be tough. That roster, they're just trying to build, and they need to build around the rookie quarterback. Chad, and then there's J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix. I didn't mention Michael Penix Jr. I will in a moment. J.J. McCarthy has the best setup of a rookie quarterback coming to the league that's been a top, 12 pick in a long, long time. Can he cash in? Can he be the type of quarterback that is not just turn around and hand off? We've been told he can be. He's got the receivers to do it with Justin Jefferson plus. And then Bo Nix has, kind of been the butt of the joke. But Sean Payton claims to love him, and Sean Payton is supposed to be the godsend of quarterbacks. He gets his chance with apparently the type of quarterback that fits his system perfectly. Denver is craving someone to get behind. Can it be Bo Nix from Oregon, not the Bo Nix of Auburn?
I'm really interested in Drake May in New England, and how is Gerard Mayo going to keep a group together that it's not the Patriot way anymore, right? It's not the same expectation. It's not the same level. The roster is not in a similar spot. So what is the Gerard Mayo way going to look like? And is it going to be a combination of Bill Belichick's way and Tom Brady's way and his way? Is it going to be a totally different vibe around that team? And then when things go south, which they're going to go south this year pretty quickly, how does that group stay together?
And how does it go south with some really bad performances that you try to get some experience from a rookie, Dallas and the Cowboys' contract decisions. CeeDee Lamb was reported to be ahead of Dak Prescott in the contract tier for their focus right now. Makes sense because CeeDee Lamb's the guy that's not in California with the Dallas Cowboys. He skipped the team flight as they chartered their way to training camp. He's not there. He's a holdout. Dak Prescott, Diana Rossini is saying that he could be the first $60 million per year quarterback whenever the contract negotiations are done, if they get done. If they don't, he's a free agent after this season. Mike McCarthy is on his final season of his contract as head coach of the Cowboys. And then you have Micah Parsons, who's a sit-and-wait player because of the other two on offense for the big paydays. 3 massive players. CeeDee Lamb is the focus, but they also need to get Dak Prescott's deal done to free up space in order to figure out what you want to do contractually and make everything fit. He's coming off a great year, career best year, 1,800 yards, 12 touchdowns, 150-plus catches. He had 135 catches, and he had 8 games of 100 or more receiving yards. He had a 200-plus receiving yard game on Monday Night Football last season. He's a dynamic player, and he wants Justin Jefferson money. Is Dallas going to give it to him, and how soon? This is a all-in type year. They didn't do anything this offseason, and it's based on these 3 players that they need to click and not just win in the regular season. Kirk Cousins in Atlanta can go to Atlanta and win the division. Now, he's coming off his Achilles injury. He's older, 34, 35 years old. They draft Michael Penix Jr. in a weird move. Chad, they haven't had a winning season in Atlanta since 2017. They have the skill position players there. They've done nothing but draft top 10 and top 5 picks that they've put into this offense. And the missing piece has been quarterback. Kirk Cousins can be that guy. He's going to basically the same offense, same system. And whenever he's able to step in and lead, can he be the type of player that distributes the football well like he did in Minnesota? Because they can win that division. We know how it panned out last year.
Was 2017 their Super Bowl year, the run?
That
or
was
that
the
was the year
28-6. That was the 28.
That was that season, or was it 2016 season? I can't remember which one, but that's been a while since they've had a winning season. That's a long stretch in the NFL where it is designed for you to get okay quickly. Getting from bad to okay is not difficult. It's getting from okay to top-level playoff team. It's hard.
Far more difficult. But it's not as much, I don't believe, in the NFC, right? Yeah. Especially in the NFC South. Finally.
There's a window open in that conference, more so than the AFC.
Yes. And again, we saw...
It's not real drafty in the AFC. That window's pretty tight and shut. There's not a lot of drafts coming through.
And the storyline of Penix Jr., the talent, again, the offensive skill set, talent in Atlanta.
My guy in one of the worst spots for him to be, I thought, on draft night. For them to do that. And the situation with Cousins, very, very uncomfortable.
The Baltimore Ravens, they're my number 5 headline, just because of this pairing. Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, 2-time MVP, paired with the King, who is now 30 years old. All about the age, wear and tear. Does he have tread left on the tires? He has said that he will let his play speak for his age. And now they have a playmaker in the backfield that they'll actually give the football to for what is going to be a great addition for RPO. It matches Henry's game very well. This can be a dynamic offense with not just an exceptional playmaker quarterback, but now you have your bell cow running back that they didn't have against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. They've been the number 1 seed in the AFC twice in the last 5 years, 0 Super Bowl appearances. Lamar Jackson gets the contract. He had a great bounce-back year last year after the contract, and still nothing to show for it. They are motivated like the not just run it back, but what did they call it at Ohio State, Chad? Ryan Day and the prove it year or something is what they're calling it. They need to finish the job in Baltimore as well, and they can do it with Scott. I said whenever free agency started, but Henry hadn't signed, this was to me a no-brainer, and I think because of the position, I don't think it's a discussion much of the offseason as much as it will be week to week when the schedule starts rolling in week 1. This is a game changer. They stay healthy. They're back where they were a year ago. Can they finish the job?
Just that photo right there, that's a formidable duo in the backfield.
Yeah, and again,
like that screams toughness, physicality, run the football a bunch of different ways at you. That's a tough pairing when you look at them together.
And they want to throw the football there too.
Yeah.
So again, Jackson's improved in that area. It's not everything's just to the tight ends over the middle, and he's motivated. We heard that as soon as they lost the game to Kansas City. For whatever reason, they gave the running back 6 total carries in that game. This guy,
Surprising.
22, he'll get more than 6 total carries if they play the Chiefs. Look at some of the numbers he's had against KC as well. Chad, there's some other big headlines too, but to me, while we may not see much of these guys in the preseason games, you hear a lot of quotes and a lot of discussion out of camp.
No, that's well said. Those are some huge ones to follow. And Baltimore and how they bounce back, and are they going to break through in the AFC? And then just the constant. We didn't mention Kansas City in that piece, but it's
kind of a
who's going to beat them in January?
Yeah,
right. Who's going to be the one that knocks them from their pedestal in the AFC? And I look at that pairing of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and say, you're the ones
should be, or
that could do
the Jets with Rodgers. But again, he'll be 41 if they potentially play Kansas City in the playoffs.
Hopefully there's no more trips to Egypt on the itinerary for Aaron Rodgers between now and the season.
Or a candidacy run.
Yeah.
Maybe Kamala's running back.
It's true. Could be a shakeup at the DNC.